All right, if you're gearing up for the bar exams, you know that mastering discovery in the federal court is non-negotiable. Today, we're diving deep into the rules you absolutely have to know for going beyond the standard process. We're talking rules 20.15 all the way through to 2022. So let's paint a picture. You've just gotten the other side's list of documents, and your first thought is that it? It just feels light. You've got that sinking feeling in your gut that there is way more to the story, but standard discovery has pretty much run its course. So, what's your next move? Here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with why you'd even need to go beyond standard discovery. Then we'll walk through step by step the exact rules that control the whole process, from drafting that initial application right through to verifying the final list with an affidavit. So, let's start with the basic problem. You see, standard discovery, which is under Rule 2014, really relies on the other party's own judgment of what's directly relevant. And that right there introduces this huge subjective element, what we might call their undisclosed reasoning processes, which, as a sharp barrister, you'll want to get a handle on. And this is where non-standard discovery comes in. Think of it as your strategic power play to take back control. Instead of asking them what they think is relevant, you tell them, with objective, explicit descriptions, exactly what you want, usually by defining very specific categories of documents. Okay, so how do you actually make this happen? Well, your gateway, your entry point, is a really well-prepared application under Rule 20.15. Seriously, for your exams and definitely for your practice, Rule 20.15 is where it all begins if you want to get more than just the basics. Now, you really need to pay close attention to Rule 20.15 Sub-Rule 2. It's very prescriptive. Your application isn't just a simple request. No, it has to be accompanied by these key documents. And that list of proposed categories, it needs to be drafted with almost surgical precision so there is absolutely no wiggle room for the other side. And this right here, this is the deal breaker. It's a huge exam tip. Under Rule 20.15, Sub-Rule 3, your application is basically dead in the water without a supporting affidavit. It is absolutely mandatory. And that affidavit needs to be persuasive. It has to convince the court why standard discovery just isn't going to cut it for a just outcome. Great news! The court has granted your application. So now, the ball is in your opponent's court. It's on them to produce a list of documents, and their obligations are laid out crystal clear in Rules 2016 and 20.17. Now, here is a classic procedural trap and the kind of thing they love to ask about in exams. Rule 20.16 is very specific. A party gives discovery by serving the list on the other parties. Critically, it is not filed with the court. You've got to remember that. Serve, don't file. The actual structure of the list itself is so important. Under Rule 20.17 Sub-Rule 2, it has to be broken down into these three distinct parts. You see, this structure forces them to give a complete accounting. It means you'll know what they have, what they used to have, and what they're trying to claim privilege over, and exactly why. Okay, let's get into some of the really important limitations. Rule 20.18 handles the practical side of things, like copies, but honestly, it's Rule 20.19 that completely changed the game when it comes to claims of privilege. This is a big one, folks. To really get why Rule 20.19 is such a big deal, you need to know what things were like before. Counsel used to be able to hold back a document simply by arguing, hey, this only helps my case, it doesn't help yours. It was a common and, let's be honest, often very frustrating tactic. Well, those days are long gone. Rule 20.19 could not be clearer. You cannot claim privilege on the ground that a document relates solely to your own case. That argument is dead. It's been completely abolished. For your exams, if you see that claim pop up, you know the answer is Rule 20.19. So let's be really clear about this. Discovery is not a one-and-done event. It's an ongoing process. We're now going to look at that continuing duty under Rule 20.20, and then your tactical ace in the hole when you are positive something's being held back, an application for particular discovery under Rule 20.21. Rule 20.20 creates what is a really key obligation in litigation. Once that order is made, it's not just about the documents they have in their possession on that particular day. No, if a document that falls under that order comes into their hands a week, a month, or even a year later, they are still obligated to discover it. So you've got the list, you've gone through the documents they've produced, and something just doesn't add up. The files you do have keep referring to other reports or emails that are just nowhere to be found. What do you do now?
This is your moment. This is when you use Rule 20.21. It is the specific remedy for when you are dissatisfied with the discovery that's been made. You can go right back to the court and apply for an order that targets a particular document or a very, very specific category that you have good reason to believe exists.
A word of caution here, though. An application under Rule 2021 is not a license to go on a fishing expedition. You can't just speculate. As this quote makes clear, the court always has discretion. It's going to weigh the potential value of that document to you against the cost and the burden of the search on your opponent. And if it decides it would be oppressive, your application is going to be refused. All right, we're at the final hurdle. Every single list of documents, whether it's standard or particular, has to be verified by a sworn affidavit. This is what gives it teeth. But who exactly has the authority to swear that it's complete and accurate? Well, Rule 20.22 gives us the definitive answer. The chain of command for this is spelled out very, very clearly. Rule 20.22 subrule 1 really doesn't leave any room for doubt. It specifies exactly who has to take responsibility by swearing that affidavit, from an individual party all the way up to an officer of the Crown. So, there you have it. That's the strategic framework for going beyond standard discovery, all laid out in the Federal Court Rules 20.15 to 20.22. You now have the tools to demand more, to handle privilege disputes, and to ensure accountability. So the real question is, how are you going to use this knowledge to build your case and dismantle your opponents?